The only thing that has been shared is that the City of Palmdale staff people have a dot on their map at the Palmdale Transit Center off of Sierra Highway that says Desert Express. That's the extent of the planning and interaction that we've had with anybody contemplating the Vegas corridors. I hope that changes, and I hope they're successful in doing what they do. And if they are, that will almost force California High-Speed Rail Authority to engage with them. Where today I don't think that, and I don't mean to speak out of turn because I don't know what the staff of the authority thinks about the Vegas corridors, but my guess is right now is that they feel like they got their hands full enough just dealing with our 800-mile section. Once that becomes, if that becomes more real, then we'll engage. But for now, let's just keep our eye on what we need to keep our eye on.
But the worst case scenario, I think, regarding the Desert Express would be if it ended in Palmdale and everyone would have to transfer to go north or south to LA or San Francisco.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I don't think that will happen. And I also think it would be equally bad and equally poor planning and a missed opportunity if it were just to end in Victorville like they're going to talk about now. I don't think that really works. From a planning standpoint, that doesn't make any sense to me. Got to be more questions. I mean, every other time I've been here, I've been feeding like a baby seal. I even have a little baby seal on my counter in my office. Yes, sir.
Is Soledad Canyon a potential route?
No. Soledad Canyon was one of the 8 or 9 alignments that came out of this exercise that we went through to look at options through the mountains from Santa Clarita on up to Palmdale. It was one of it made it down to about 8. You know, it was on the short list of 8, and everybody has agreed that because of the environmental impacts associated with that and the likely staggering mitigation costs that would come out of the environmental process, that we have screened it out of the process right now, and the board of the authority has accepted that that's no longer one of the candidate alignments going north of Palmdale. So if you go on the High Speed Rail Authority website and look for the AA, for example, the draft proposal that we posted on there, Soledad Canyon would be dropped from further consideration.
Actually, I think we probably could use an explanation on what the routing the options are from Sylmar to Palmdale, since they actually, I don't think I've been to a meeting that actually expresses it, and I don't know that anybody here knows what the options are at this point.
Well, there were 3 remaining, and let's see how we do this without our boards or charts. Essentially, all 3 leave the railroad, the existing metro right-of-way in Santa Clarita, around Placerita Canyon Road, the Disney property, essentially, where we sort of take a hard right and leave the right-of-way heading north up into the high desert. One of the alignments is sort of a standalone alignment that goes through, for lack of a better expression right now, the sort of the mid-mountain area through Agua Dulce and Acton. And that created all kinds of issues in those communities, needless to say. The other 2 alignments start off, once they make the right turn, by roughly paralleling SR-14. So we have, not so cleverly, identified those 2 alignments as SR-14 East and SR-14 West. And the sort of the discrete alignment that stands alone is SR-14 South. And then we had Soledad Canyon. So Soledad Canyon is gone. We have a standalone alignment that goes through Acton and Agua Dulce, that's SR-14 South. We're not real keen on that one because the folks in Acton and Agua Dulce are not keen on that. And it also happens to be the most expensive of the 3 remaining corridors to build. So then we have SR-14 East and West, which are the 2 northernmost alignments, actually, snaking their way on up through the mountains to Palmdale. SR14 West, as we come into Palmdale, we have a real challenge getting around Palmdale Lake. If we opt for SR14 East, that would get us back into the railroad right-of-way, which up there now is owned by the Union Pacific, not by Metro any longer. That would get us back into the UP right-of-way quickest. That would tie us in to the existing Palmdale Transit Center, which is what the city of Palmdale would like for us to do. That is what we would like to do as well. But in order to do that, we have to essentially rebuild the dam at Palmdale Lake, because that's where that's where the existing railroad right-of-way is. And so, in order to make that happen, we have to be comfortable from an engineering standpoint that we can essentially rebuild that dam to accommodate all of this. The easier option from an engineering standpoint is SR14 West, which goes to the west of Palmdale Lake, avoids the dam altogether, but from a planning standpoint, I hate it. The engineers love it because it's easier. From a planning standpoint, I hate it because it's got less of a focus on existing transportation infrastructure, the transit center in Palmdale. It has more community impact because it has to go through a couple of residential communities to get to where the station would be located. And it has lots of environmental impacts like the community impacts that make it much more of a challenge from a planning standpoint that I'm really comfortable with. But we'll have to see in the environmental process once we start doing the engineering on the Palmdale East section on the dam, whether that can be done in a reasonable manner. If not, we may have to maybe move the line on the west alignment to make us pointy-headed planners a little bit happier than we are today. But regardless, I think we're down to a place where in October, the board is likely to say, okay, we're down to two options through the mountains. The northernmost options, they skirt Acton and Agua Dulce. They roughly parallel the 14th. They're much flatter curves because of the speeds we're talking about. And then they come in east and west of Palmdale Lake, essentially, depending on which one we go with. Does that do justice to the map at all?
It certainly explains better than.
Okay.
You know, now you could perhaps cover the San Fernando Valley segment, if there's any options or what plans are.
Existing railroad right-of-way through the valley. Metro Link and UP on one side, and 2 tracks for them, 2 tracks for high-speed train that bulks out to 4 tracks for high-speed train at the station locations. 2 for platform tracks and 2 for your express tracks down the middle. At present, we're looking at 2 station options in Burbank, one in downtown Burbank adjacent to the 5 that we had already rejected once from an engineering standpoint. The other one is Burbank Airport, which works better from an engineering standpoint, but doesn't get you where these things are ostensibly supposed to be, connecting downtown to downtown. A lot of people think that high-speed rail is supposed to connect airport to airport. I'm not really sure where that came from, though I think I have seen it in some of the high-speed rail literature, frankly. But I also see it in the same literature downtown to downtown. So we get a little bit confused sometimes as to what the sort of the values of the overarching values are supposed to be. So nevertheless, that being said, both Burbank stations, whether it's downtown Burbank or at the airport, have engineering and planning challenges associated with them, which suggests to me that both will remain in for the next year through the environmental document so that we can do a much more rigorous analysis of both of those locations to start answering some of these questions in a little bit more robust manner than we have data for today. Moving north through the valley, then we're going to stay in the Metro-owned right-of-way through the valley, up through Silmar, Santa Clarita, before we take the right turn through the mountains.